another episode of Iconic Freedom, the formula. We are setting a standard for accountability, the ownership of your choices, and responsibility, that ability to respond to those choices, all with doing no harm to others or yourself. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for. And today in episode 3, we are going to hear a little bit more from Jenny, who is JoJo's daughter, and hear part of her story, as well as hearing more about JoJo and what her professional career was like, because she's now retired. Wait till you get a load of this. This is unbelievable and so amazing and inspiring. Enjoy.
I need a career type of thought in my head, and I needed something more for my life. And I had gotten a facial from a friend who went to aesthetic school, and I was like, this is great. Like, I love this. I love everything about it. And I decided to go to school to be an esthetician.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I loved it ever since. I mean, it just really clicked for me.
That's amazing. And so, JoJo, now I'm going to ask you, what did you do? What was your path when Jack was out of the picture?
Well, then I had the girls, and we went on our own, and then I met I met an older man, and we kind of clicked, and we were together for a while. And
what's a while?
A few years. We were together for a few years, but he was much older than me, and I do mean much older. And
what is much older?
I think there was a 20-some year.
Okay.
I thought it was like 14.
Huh?
14 or 16?
Is it about that? 14 to 20 years difference.
Mm-hmm.
Close to Tom Cruise and
Yeah.
what's her face?
Yeah, yeah, probably the same thing. So then we were together for a while there, and then I decided that he was getting too old and crotchety. and I took the girls, and we went out on our own.
So interesting. So how long do you think you guys were together?
Oh, we were together, maybe 3 years, 4 years.
Oh, okay. So
yeah,
not too long.
4 years.
And it just, did you think at the time it was a transition, or the...
Well, there was a big age difference between us.
Yeah,
there was a huge,
That's
there was
a
a big age difference, and he raised boys. I'm raising girls.
Right.
You don't raise them the same way, and I couldn't get that through his head.
Right.
Well, take a switch and switch the back of their legs. and I said, I'll take a switch and switch the back of your legs. Are you crazy?
Right.
I wasn't strict enough with my girls. I was letting them do what they wanted to do, and you don't do that. So I said, okay, that's it, sayonara. I can't take this. I'm going to raise my girls my way. You raised your boys your way, and so be it.
So what kind of work did he do?
He owned a frozen foods distribution, and he used to deliver to all the grocery stores different frozen foods.
And that's very interesting. So
Yeah.
was he gone quite a bit?
No, it was all local, all Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah.
But very interesting job.
Yeah.
So, so then you take the girls and off you go. And
we go.
where did you go to?
We moved, the girls and I moved to, what was that?
Well, we were in
Bath. We were in
Fairlawn.
Bath. We were Bath Fairlawn.
Okay. And did you buy a house then?
I did buy a house.
Okay.
I bought this sprawling house with a mansard roof.
On your
It was
own?
On my own, and it was on 5 acres. It was in the middle of 5 acres, and it used to be, and there was a big circular drive that the editor of the Beacon Journal, it was his house, and he used to fly a helicopter, and in the middle of my driveway was this helicopter pad. He used to land it there.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I bought this house.
Do you remember how much you bought it for?
$100,000.
Wow. And what year was that?
Oh, geez, I don't know how.
Early 80s?
Yeah.
Early 80s.
Yeah.
That's pretty good for
Yeah.
that time period.
Yeah.
Because, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I bought this house. It had a mansard roof, and we were installing there was a big, huge attached family room to the house. And to do the roof of that part, we had to go up to the attic. And up in the attic were these papers that the builder found, and he brought them down to me, and he gave the papers to me. He says, "You might need these someday." And I just didn't think anything of it and threw it aside. And then about a year or two later, I thought, what am I doing with these papers? And I opened it up, and inside it was signed by, it was the whole layout of the house, and it was signed by, what's that? It was a very famous builder. I can't think of it.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
What was it?
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Frank Lloyd Wright. They were signed by Frank Lloyd Wright.
What?
And I didn't know it until we came out here to Arizona, and we went to the Frank Lloyd Wright.
To Taliesin West.
Yes, we went there on a visit, an excursion.
Tour.
And that's when I found out. And I left those papers, those signed papers, up in the attic of that house in Bath, Ohio.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So then is this the house that you still have?
No, I don't have that.
You sold that
I
house?
sold that house because I couldn't afford it. It was a sprawling ranch, and I mean sprawling.
Wow.
And they had a heatilator system in the fireplace, and they had these little 1-inch nuggets, and the heat would go through those nuggets, and that's how it heated the room.
Oh, wow.
And then all the rooms had floor to ceiling windows.
Oh, boy. Yeah, well, that sounds like
So
Frank Lloyd
can you
Wright.
imagine the heating bill
yeah.
of a house
Oh,
like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's
it was
insane.
huge, yeah. And then one day, and the kitchen had I forget who the decorator person was with the kitchen, but we had the windows open one day, and a horse came through. Right, it was at our kitchen table, and the window was open, and the neighbor's horse came to the window, came right through.
Oh my God.
And I just sat there. I couldn't believe it. And the neighbor came running to get their horse back. But yeah, it was
Wow.
it was on 3. The house was on 3. I think it was 3 acres, 3 or 5 acres. I
That's
think
amazing.
3
Okay, so
acres.
what year did you sell the house? Do you recall?
80s.
In the 80s, it was in the early 80s.
Okay. And then what were you doing for work during this time?
A strip bar.
Okay.
It's actually a go-go bar.
It was a go-go bar.
They weren't nude.
And what were you doing there?
I was a partner of the owner.
You were a partner of the owner. Okay, were you a go-go dancer?
No.
You weren't.
No, I was just, I was asked to be many, many times, and I did one dance one night. But in order for them to get me to dance, each person that came in had to pay $500.
Oh my gosh.
And they paid the $500.
Wow.
And it was packed. And the doors were locked. And I took that money and I bought the house that I left the bar. Well, I used to bring the girls in the next day after
Right.
the show and everything, and they would go in between the seats and take
Find the change.
find all the change,
Oh
all the
my
money
God.
from the seats. Every weekend I used to bring them in, and that's how we saved all our money, and then
That's
we moved out.
Early child labor
Yeah.
law.
And back,
What a great story.
Yeah,
Okay, so you were part owner of a strip
Yes.
club, basically, a go-go bar. Okay. Now, were they fully disrobed,
Well,
or they just did,
they did G-strings and little pasties.
Okay, okay.
But then behind closed doors,
Well, we don't know what happened. Right.
it was a different story.
Okay.
And that would happen twice a month on a certain day. The word would go out that on this date is the stripping night. And they all had to pay a big dollar amount. And they were all college students that were doing the stripping.
Of course they were.
And then the girls later, after it got around, said, "This isn't fair. You've got strippers for guys. How about strippers for girls?"
And
And guess what I did?
you started.
I hired some guys that liked doing strip dancing for girls. There was boys that would come out and they would dance.
Wow.
And
So you were doing Thunder from Down Under before it was popular.
yeah. And the one night, this one boy, I'll never forget this as long as I live. It's the funniest thing. He was popular. The girls just loved. He was really cute. But as he was dancing one night, he had stuffed his G-string, and the little ping pong balls that were in his G-string came out. And they were going across the dance floor. And what a riot. I mean, all the girls got up and laughed and clapped and screaming.
They probably loved him even more, right?
It was a night to behold.
That is hilarious.
Yes. The boys were all college students, and this is how they were making money, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the girls were college students also.
Okay, so then, wow, this is amazing. Okay, so then, how long did you How long were you
I was at
partially
that
owner?
restaurant. Well, I think worked at that restaurant about 3 or 4 years.
Okay, so then did the other partner buy you out? Or?
Yeah,
Okay.
I walked out and never turned around.
Oh.
Because it was getting too loose. It was getting where there were other things that were going on. And I thought, I've got 2 daughters at home, and that's just what I need, is to be arrested for whatever's going on. I got to get out of here. And by that time, too, the girls were getting embarrassed that their mother was
owning a strip club.
Yeah, strip club, you know. So I walked out that one night. And then the other scary part was the fact that I'd have to take the money to the bank for a deposit that night, during the night, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And so my partner bought me a pistol. And so I had this pistol with me to make a drop. And I thought, this is too much. I got 2 daughters. I can't do this anymore. Right. And I walked away from it.
Wow.
I still have the gun, actually. I still have the gun.
Good for you.
I still have that. But I gave everything up and walked away from it because.
So, and then did he ever buy you out, like send you money?
No.
No. So you just walked away
on my
free
own.
and clear.
Yes, free and clear. I didn't want anything. I didn't want to be held to.
Gotcha. And then what did you do for there? I mean, what did you do for work? Where did you land?
Well, then I saw this ad for a billing clerk at Cotter Moving and Storage in Akron. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to go and apply for this. So I go to this store, to this place, and the woman that's interviewing says, can you do this? Can you do that? And I'm sitting there, oh my God, I can't do any of this, because I did a strip bar and I haven't typed in years, you know. And and I told this lady, I says, you know, I need a job. I need a job really bad. I got 2 girls. And I told her my story. And she said, okay. She says, now here's what you do. The owner of Cotter Moving and Storage is going to interview you. And whatever he asks you, can you do this, can you do that, you tell him, yes, you can do that. Don't say you can't do something. Just tell me you can do it, and I'll tell him that we need to hire you, and I'll train you. Okay, so I go in, and of course he asks me all these questions. I don't know. I don't even know what he's talking about, let alone answer it with a good answer. And sure enough, it happened just like she said. He hired me because he liked me. Hired me. She taught me everything about how to charge for. They were a long distance driving trucking company.
Got it.
And she taught me all the ins and outs of it. And so I did that for a couple of years. And then after a couple of years, a businessman came in that he needed to have a move done. And we got to talk, and he says to me, he says, why are you doing this? You don't need to be in this dirty environment. And he says, come down to the Prince and Pauper restaurant, downtown Akron. He says, come on, you can, you know. So he talked me into going there. So I go there, and sure enough, I get the job. And then...
and what's that job?
That was a hostess manager of a restaurant.
Oh.
And so I did that for a while. And then I met somebody else, and they said, you know, you really need to get out of this. You could do this, this, and that. And that's how I got every job. It was because somebody always referred me to somebody else.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did you get to? Okay, so you worked at this restaurant, and then
I did
somebody
the restaurant.
suggests something else, and what was
Yeah.
the next?
And then after that, what did I do after managing that? I think that's when somebody said,
Well, you went to the moving company, and then you went
Yeah.
to UBS Payne Webber.
I went to what was the name of it? It was down under the
Butcher Singer.
That's it, Butcher and Singer. I went
Okay.
to work for Butcher and Singer. They're stockbrokers.
And what'd you do there?
And there she hired me to do the trading. And I
She
looked
hired you to do trading.
At
What
that
year was
time,
that?
that's so long ago. At that time, they had one of those machines that you typed on, the teletype thing, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, so she hires me. So I'm pecking, and these guys are coming up, giving me orders to buy stock. And she comes in and she sees me pecking, and she says, "What the hell are you doing?" And I says, "I'm putting an order in." She says, "Well, you can't do that. You're going to miss the market, and these guys are going to be all over you." And I says, "Well, I didn't know how to do that thing, because you would type a buy and then apostrophe. Then you would go to the next line, sell so many shares, then you put an apostrophe. And every time you did a line, you had to put an apostrophe so that it didn't all run together."
Right.
Okay, so she sends me to Pittsburgh. So I got to go to Pittsburgh for training on how to use this machine. I got 2 girls at home. I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? So I had Floyd take care of you girls. Remember, I went to Pittsburgh for 4 or 5 days to learn how to use the teletype.
Wow.
Came back. I was proficient on that teletype. Boy, I knew. And they took me on the stock market. I got to go on the exchange, right where they had their trading desk and everything. I was there at the stock market. It was fascinating. Everybody yelling and screaming and mouths going and hands waving, papers flying all over the place. When I first walked in, it scared the living daylights out of me. I thought, this is a crazy house, But after being there for about a day, I calmed down, and they taught me all the things I needed to know about the teletype and how to put the order in correctly, and time is of the essence. And so then when I went back, I was on that machine like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I really,
Wow.
yeah. And then there was one of the brokers there, a young guy. His name was Dino, and he said, Joann, he says, "You're wasting your talent here. There's somebody that's looking for somebody at Payne Webber." I look at him and I say, "Yeah, but I'm comfortable here," and he says, "Yeah, but it's more money." Okay, so I go to Payne. I go there, I interview, and they send me to
Beechwood.
What was it?
Beechwood.
Beechwood. They send me to Beechwood to interview with the manager at the Beechwood office. So I drive from Akron to Beechwood, which is about a 40-minute drive. It's a long drive.
Okay.
So I go to Beechwood, and the manager had just come in from Michigan. That's where he was. He was taking over the place there. So we talk and everything. So he decides to hire me. So
Wow.
he hires me. I come back, and I got this old jalopy car, and I'm thinking, how am I going to get back and forth from Akron to Beechwood? It's a 45-minute drive, and I got to be on the highway the whole time.
Right.
So another friend says, "Oh, come on, you need to get a car." And that's when I got my first Honda.
Wow.
I got a Honda so that I could go back and forth.
I'm a huge fan of the Honda.
Yes,
I own a Honda.
yeah. So then, all right, so I'm going back and forth for a couple years, and the girls are on their own.
Wow.
So then I thought, oh, this isn't any good for all of this. And then somebody came into that Beechwood office and said, "Well, the manager over downtown Akron is looking for an assistant.
Wow.
You should go down there and interview." I thought, oh, yeah, that's 10 minutes away from where I'm living, That's a no-brainer. And this
Right.
car isn't going to make,
Right.
So I go to downtown, and plus the girls are mad because nobody's home,
Right.
no mother at the house.
Right.
So I go to Akron, I interview with the manager, and the manager says, "Well, it's a broker that needs an assistant. He's really hard on all of his assistants, and they never last very long. How tenacious are you?" I says, Just show me, put me by him. So I go and I interview with him, and him and I just click. So they hired me downtown Akron, and him and I worked together famously. I mean, we were great. And then he had a heart attack.
Oh, wow.
He had a heart attack. And I stayed on. I still stayed on because they got, there was other brokers there at the office.
Sure.
And so then from there I went, that was my life. I just kept going from one to the other. Was always on a referral. I never got a job without somebody saying to me.
So was Payne Weber the last job you had before retiring?
It moved to
UBS.
UBS. And I was at UBS, I think, 20 years, 25 years.
Wow.
I was there a long time. And they threw when I retired, the girls were pushing me to retire at that time. And so I thought, okay, it's enough. I've had enough of this, because it was really, it's a tense job. It's not,
sure,
because I was the wire operator. I did the trading.
Oh, wow.
And so and I had to go and get my license. I got my Series 7 license and a 35. I had to have for all the states so I had to have all the licenses. I passed the test, and that was, the girls were mad at me because I locked myself up in the basement and don't leave me alone. And I got to learn all this, because my job depends on it now.
Wow.
So I got my series license, and I became a trader and worked with the top producer at UBS, and worked with him for 20 years. He had a heart attack and died, and then his son took over.
Wow. Okay.
And his son is there now. In fact, he's my broker now. When I retired,
that's so funny.
I retired from working with him, and I have my accounts there. The girls have their accounts there too.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So I always got a job by a referral. Somebody always said, "Why are you wasting your talents here? You should go and do this. You'd be perfect there." And I always sit there and think, wow, do I want to do that? Trading, stock exchange. I knew nothing about stocks and bonds, nothing.
Sure.
Period. I thought, and I got to get a license to do this, because to talk to clients and that, you got to have a license. You can't take an order for a stock without having, that's illegal. You're not supposed to do that. Of course, a lot of people do it anyways, but still, yeah, that's how I moved along, and then finally ended up. They threw a big going away retirement party at Tangiers in Akron, Ohio. Tangiers now LeBron James is the one that bought the old Tangiers and made it into that home for.
What a fascinating story. It's kind of interesting when you start interviewing someone and they kind of go off in various directions, and you never know what is going to become of it and how it's going to reveal so much about the choices they've made and how their life has unfolded. I think the story about the strip club is absolutely fantastic. And on top of that, how she made her way to be working as a stockbroker, basically, and ended up with UBS Payne Weber. It's such an amazing time, and that there were so many people along the way that had an interest, their own self-interest, right, of feeling good and wanting to help somebody else, and then encouraging her, hey, you could do this. And aside from the one lady who watched her pecking and said, what the hell are you doing? What a great story. It's so inspiring. I think, especially, I'm talking about Mother's Day and having this be the month of May, the month of moms. And I think it's an interesting thing that, it's the most significant relationship you will ever have in your life, is that with a parent. And to be able to hear the history from whence they came, and then all of those qualities that were in their DNA are now in you. And if we are lucky, we're able to tap into those resources, and we're able to find our own path. And so often I think it's kind of fascinating too, right? That how our patterns will repeat what their patterns are. And boy, if that is not to me, if that is not a moment of understanding that these things are all connected, I don't know what else is. So crazy, so amazing. That music means that it is time for me to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me again. I really appreciate you spending your Sunday with me. Hey, hit that like button if you would. Subscribe to the podcast if you like. The link is down below. Check out my book at lulu.com. And I will see you next week. We will wrap this up, this interview with JoJo. Let each care for self, and all will be cared for.